board for this. I'm also the regional engineer for the Navy. And thanks for coming today. I want to do a couple things. First of all is get you excited about a business opportunity for you that's all pre-decisional. So, all right, foot stomp multiple times, asterisks on all the slides, pre-decisional. But the intent of me, certainly, I guess I can speak for myself, but had a phone call with the Director of Navy Staff Tuesday. They all kind of fade together now, and we laid out the plan of how we're getting to the CNO and then back to the Hill on this program by the 19th of August. So that's when our Secretary is going to go up, brief probably ask and SAC. So it is moving fast. The Navy's intention, pre-decisional asterisk, is to ask for the funds to rebuild China Lake. So that's the business opportunity for you. I'm interested. I hope you do well on it. My job is to rebuild combat capacity for the United States Navy. If you're not aware, China Lake is a unique asset for the United States. It's the size of Rhode Island, and we can blow it up. And that's kind of important. So NAWFAC, Naval Air Warfare Center, Weapons Division is where certainly all Navy munitions, flight munitions, anything that flies, a lot of the NATO stuff gets developed. It's also where we do virtually all of our electronic warfare. The stuff on the North Range, you can get some of this, but I want to give you the sense. The North Range is where we do the explosive stuff. South Range, which did not get hit very bad in the earthquakes, is where we do the electronic stuff. So without that, without NAWFAC being able to be at full production, something in the United States is affected. We'll adjust, we'll change schedules, we'll move what we can. But until I can get that place rebuilt, the laboratories rebuilt, the magazines rebuilt, the testing facilities rebuilt, the United States is losing a little momentum there. So that's my concern and why I need you as part of the team on this thing. And we're trying to accomplish a couple things today. Principally, again, is to get you excited about it, start you forming teams, thinking about it. How would you attack this problem? There's nothing people in the AEC industry like more is, give me a problem to solve, make it hard, make it worth some money, and I'll figure out how to do it. And that's what we've got right now. And a chance, again, from the military side, that base was built principally in the 1940s. Two of the hangars that I'm going to have to take down were 1940s hangars, and we have engineering things on those that were built in the 60s. Imagine engineering now for flight weapons is a little different than engineering was in the 1960s. So again, we have an opportunity for the United States to rebuild it correctly, consolidate facilities. I was at one, and it was a cast-in-place concrete building, really beefy. It was, so I think, very stiff, and that's probably why it cracked. And skiff spaces inside of it, that sort of thing. They talk about, oh yeah, this building sits right over some tunnels that run out to the ranges. And I'm like, oh, all right. So, by the way, I'm the engineer. Do I need to rebuild a really stiff concrete building in this exact spot? Started to think of the planning in 1391. Oh, no, sir. This just happened to be the building that was available in the early 70s, so we moved into it. So I don't need to build some of this stuff way out in the ranges. Maybe I can take all those 5,000 square foot buildings, move them together, a little closer to the utilities, maybe with a single white roof at the top, I don't know, cafe in the center, whatever, and get better facilities for us to do the work as well. So again, that's the opportunity of the United States. So to tell you about the business opportunity, give you a sense of the scale going on, we probably will mention some dollar figures before today. They are? Thank you, pre-decisional. So don't go tell the Union Tribune or whatever the paper is in San Diego now of what the rebuilding is. The second one is to ask for your help. So again, we got to go up the Hill on the 19th of August. Something will get to the approach bill, we think, in FY20. I'm claiming I can award and get everything under construction in 20. I need your help to do that, particularly our A&Es here. But that's my tent. Otherwise, people will forget about it, right? Ridgecrest, where is that? We got some hurricane somewhere else to worry about. So that's the challenge to my folks and to you. But they may end up spreading it over a couple years. But what do I ask for? And how do I defend that, right? I can put a lot of zeros on something, but that's a big part of what we need to hear today. How would you approach the problem? You know, how do you deal with labor up in Ridgecrest, California? Who's been to China Lake? All right, awesome. This is good. All right, so you got a sense of it. Now, Palmdale, the next, I guess, Metro Center, if you want to use the word loosely, is 93 miles away. So you know, that's the next best place to put workers and pull supplies from. So how will you deal with that? How should we package the RFPs? Is it by like facilities? Is it by like location? You want lots of little ones, a couple big ones? You know, tell me about that. How do I talk about contingency? Right? Everybody at Congress hates the word contingency. Yeah, Edelson, shouldn't you know the price? Why should I give you extra money? All right, so I need some defense of why I need contingency, or why I put some of the cost factors on these projects that, again, I want to award in, I don't know, 90 days, 120 days from now. And what do I put in? What have you seen in Florence and Michael and Katrina that I can convey in these packages? How should I do my design standards, right? How detailed should I be in the RFP? You want to say, that was building 2, give me a new building 2, and that's the spec, or you want it really tight? And then how do I do things maybe, you know, I'm thinking mostly from my maintenance side, but how do I do things, you know, to help me out in the base operating services for years to come? Get the same toilets, get the same HVAC, get the same type of roof again and again. Hey, it's 2x4s on the ceiling and 4x4s on the ground, and it's Battleship Gray everywhere. And you know, does that help you? And then you know, help you so that you know I can get things awarded fast, built fast, and maintained for a long time. Because in the Southeast, you know what they call this? Recap by natural disaster. Otherwise, you know, Jacksonville and Gulfport never get any money, but you know, Pensacola gets a hurricane and they get half their facilities replaced. We just do it in a bigger way out here in the Southwest. Thankfully, not as often. So that's the, is that the second or the third one? The other one I want to get you thinking about today, and would like to hear some thoughts, is it's kind of toasty out in China Lake. I had my electricians up there, a lot of them are still there, replacing telephone poles. One stretch we had 275 of them knocked over, and the guys, they jumped in their trucks immediately. I had no shortage of volunteers from San Diego. They got up to China Lake and they found out, wow, the weather's a little different out here. They had to send guys out to buy, probably to Palmdale, to buy coolers and ice and everything else, because we just were not prepared. It is frickin' hot out here, and some of the stuff, the clip, the China Lake Propulsion Laboratory is way out in the desert. And how do you deal with that? What are your ideas? How are you going to keep people safe? How are you going to watch the QC when we're moving this fast? What's your approach to managing it? And if you are reluctant to share that today, one, I hope you're not. You know, get some ideas flowing here. Part of the task for the panel, and I'll be able to stick around for a few minutes, is to help you pull ideas out of you. But if you want to talk separately, we can arrange that as well. Again, you know, I'll put it in the RFP, and then you got to live with it. So it's up to you to you know, help me craft that thing. What I always tell people is I will listen to anything. My decision what actually goes in the RFP or not. So, but if you're silent, I can't help you. All right, so let me give you a sense. Again, giant base up there, a 6.4 and then a 7.1. The base had really recovered from the 6.4. We got the power and water back on later that evening. You know, it had happened early on the 4th. Their EOC, their Emergency Operations Center, had you know, pretty much stood down. The CO had gone home for a couple hours and had been up basically all night. And then the 7.1 hit on the evening of the 5th. And it really bothered people. We've got stories of, you know, kids in family housing who were left home alone. I mean, right, it's 8 o'clock on Friday night. That's not surprising. And they're now in counseling because the thing happened so hard, so fast. So everybody's a little skittish up there. We have these hangars where we do operational test and evaluation. We develop new tactics for the Navy and ways to use weapons. And the cross bracing them in them just snapped. It's gone. You know, yay for the engineers. All the buildings stood up. Nobody got hurt in this whole thing. But the 1940 whatever hangar, a lot of its structural steel just snapped. The swimming pool, also in a building I think built in the 50s, it got a couple cracks, water drained out of it, and then what we saw in a lot of the buildings that need repair, their fire mains inside broke. The sprinklers broke, and we got water damage in China Lake from an earthquake. Not what you normally expect, but that's a lot of what we saw. And certainly inside, the contents were tossed all around. Vidmar cabinets just tilted over, things spilled out everywhere. So when you walk into any one office, it looks a shambles. Now they're cleaning most of that up, but in those homes up there, we have 192 units of family housing. The CO had a good man-sized chest of drawers, and it went up, flipped over on its top, and landed again. I'm not even sure how the physics of that work, but the house essentially was tossed up, maybe like you were tossing a pizza or something, and it just flipped over. And that's what happened throughout these buildings. So when you first walk in, you're expecting death and destruction or something, but you don't see that. What you see instead is the stuff spilled around, but it's behind the walls or where things got tweaked, the structural steel got damaged, the foundations got cracked, and it tended to be either in the older buildings, those two hangars I mentioned, the air traffic control tower, and certainly the things closer to the epicenter. So again, small stiff structures. The magazine ops were up to 33 magazines, I think, now. The aftershocks keep hitting us that are cracked and unusable. It's kind of one of those things, magazines store ordnance, and I don't know if I want to put ordnance in a repaired magazine. That just does not sound good. Plus, again, they were built when, in the 40s, everything was a lot smaller. They're little igloo magazines. Hey, let's take this chance for the United States and rebuild them in a new Type C, Type E magazines. They can store things more efficiently. Their safety, and that's what we generally also saw was stuff that was newer, built post Loma Prieta, survived very, very well. So let's take the opportunity to do that. Even though in one of the, there's large doors on the magazines, even one of the newer ones, the brackets just ripped off the wall. All we have to do is put the back bracket back on. All the magazines at Main Mags had their earth covering, and they had a gunite covering over that, cracked and all slid down. So it's a lot of that stuff. Now, if you've seen the pictures, roads throughout the place are cracked, shifted 7 or so feet one direction, and then our utility system got banged up pretty hard. There's electricals and that. We were fixing water lines, so everything's replaced 10 feet at a time now out there. The one that we don't know, we're just starting some evaluations on that I'm scared of, is our clay pipe sewage collection system. So I don't know where I'm draining everything right now, but it's probably deep. I now have a leach field in China Lake, probably. So it's things like that, and again, back to the problem at hand. How do I build that into your scopes of work? So when you open up something, we don't know, especially in the repair projects, exactly what we're going to find in there. How do we allow for that? How do we respond quickly? I have one more along those lines. What would you advise me for staffing the office? One thing I usually hear from a contractors group is, hey, you got to turn mods around faster, get us answers faster. You don't want to be in China Lake any longer than I do. Sorry guys, if you're on the line. How do I need to staff the office up there? What should be our partnering method, our escalation method to address some of these things so we can get you in and out, get our facilities rebuilt. This also probably won't be the last time we get together, right? At some point I will not have to put asterisks on everything. and we'll have some idea of the program and get either, I'm sure, a pre-bid conferences together, because they're going to come out fast and furious. Then afterwards, we have one great kumbaya session of everybody who was awarded projects. How do we work together? How do we play nice? How do we deal with the berthing? Do we stand up some clue structures out there? How do you contractors partner maybe for one berthing? We do that, for example, in Guantanamo Bay, certainly in Djibouti and Afghanistan. Is there a smart way of doing that? Should we do that for you? Should you do it? Those are the types of things. But we've got, you'll see the list, but 20, 30 large buildings that need to be repaired. I think we're maybe up to 30 large, but don't write it down now, somebody better than me will talk about it. Buildings that need to be replaced. Current functions that need to be replaced. Again, how we do that is still, we know we're not rebuilding hangars 2 and 3 exactly where they are and exactly in the form they are, but the functions performed there will come back. I think what we ended up doing is we took the dollars off the slides, but put square footage in so that you've got some sense of the scale of what we're talking about. My initial, I'll give you the scale, my initial request, not a request, my initial estimate of the damage, and then I need your input on this, what should I factor in, was $1.7 billion in facilities work alone. It happens that a lot of the specialty equipment up there, because it's RDT&E sites, looks a lot like a facility. It's structural steel, they now rocket engines to it. There's one spot they park aircraft and shoot cannons at the aircraft in a 600-mile-an-hour wind tunnel. It's a weapons testing facility to see how the plane will survive. It has a giant structure on it. It's not a facility. So there may be some things when we work with our end client that we include in a construction package, because the same types of people would build it. So that number will certainly include some of those things. So that's the magnitude we're talking about. Again, I will get some of it. I think we're aiming 200 million or so this year, FY19. To be awarded and fixed. Any building I can get back up and running, can forget about it. Any road that I can get repaired at this point, get that done. And certainly anything that I can demolish before SHPO wakes up. I didn't say that out loud, did I? Anything that I need to take down for life, health, safety right now, we'll try and take down in 19 with, as you imagine, the big repair, the big replacement projects coming next year. All right, so was a little surprised to get this in my last month in command, but my job is to set this up for the next guy. So he has a program, hopefully approved by Congress. He knows how much money's coming. He's got a slate of contractors who are interested and capable, so that when that money shows up, hopefully early in 19 or early in 20, you all can get to work. So I've got pretty clear marching orders. I have a goal that I want to set him up for success and again return the combat capability to China Lake just as fast as I can. So that's my job. I hope you want to do a little bit with me. You can take another challenge, push yourself a little harder, and do something else for the United States. So let me see now if there's a few questions for me. I will tend to, probably depending on what they are, deflect and say, hey, we'll answer them in the panel, but if you got a couple especially for me. Sure.
Sir, can you give any color to how mission capable the base is now? How operational are they back in?
Yeah, we term it as partially mission capable. The families came back after 2 weeks. It was a very big push to get the families back. A lot of the mission, big base, over $5 billion for the plant replacement value. The airfield came through absolutely fine, so we can take off and land there. By the way, we have regular projects that are happening in China Lake also, including fixing some more of the runway out there. So they are working reasonably well, and a lot of the missions were displaced to other facilities. So air operations that used to be in one of the hangars is working off the CO's quarterdeck right now, right? They just pile up computers, one of the things that I did mention for 19 is get all the temporary spaces. We'll be able to move them into trailers. The toughest one right now are those 2 hangars. Because we need to do aircraft maintenance in there, they need to do the engineering in there. So they're just scattered randomly around, and I think they are not working really well. I plan to get up some clamshells for them and some trailers so they can get back to, again, if we ain't testing missiles, we're not testing new weapons, something is sliding off schedule, so we got to get them up and running. The other big one you'll hear about, Michelson Lab. The total of Michelson Lab is 500,000 square feet. It was damaged. It will be a big repair project, except Wing 8. You'll hear it's the machine shop, 3 stories high, heavy milling equipment in there. It was structurally different than the others wings, and it got hit pretty hard. So we're not sure how we're going to handle the machine shop right now, though I think we're also putting a tent up for that one. They'll be able to work some there. They'll end up subcontracting out. And then you got out in the ranges, we're not fully back up in the testing realm. So the Channel Lake Propulsion Lab is still working through some issues out there.
There's going to be a ton of people when you get this thing going. How's the security going to be handled to bring these people onto the base that they work? Are they going to be allowed to work in some areas and not allowed to work in others?
So, good question that we'll need to work through. We test weapons, we develop weapons up there. I can't wander around without special passes, or without an escort, because I don't have the special passes. So it will be fairly tight. One of the things we may have to look at is, how do we bus people into an area? Luckily, it's spread out. We get you up to main mags, and then within main mags, you've got some freedom of movement there. The flight line is very tightly controlled for a variety of reasons, and that may be hey, we need to include as a provision in the contract to fence off your job site. You go in and out of that, nowhere else. You take lunch inside that, so that we can, protect the security of what we're doing up there, that allow you as much freedom of movement. So it's still going to be tight. We have an active Navy base doing weapons testing up there. I'll go back.
Secret or top secret clearance if they required at all?
Depending on what spaces you're building, if you've been doing any of the Navy construction lately, virtually everything now has SCIFs and SAP-F spaces, secure communication spaces, so there's a lot more of that, and that has very tight restrictions on who can work there, so there'll certainly be some of that. Left side.
Okay, so the DoD has gone hat in hand asking for money for Lejeune, Tyndall, Offutt, and Congress has not coughed up the money. How are you going to do something different here to prevent that situation? Does that also maybe include bringing in not just us contractors, but say NAVFAC contractors who are doing RTD work, or those sorts of things? Because I think you got to have a different message. Otherwise, you're going to get bogged down like what's happening in Lejeune.
Yeah, those other ones are happening. It's just not as obvious that there's a big chunk of special appropriation, especially in the FY19 bill, because we got a full year appropriation, everything the DoD asked for at the beginning of the year. So there was some reluctance to just say, give us another chunk of money. But Rich Hayes, my counterpart Midland, he's got $1.4 billion worth of MILCON award in 20 to help rebuild Lejeune. We're standing up another command out there likely to run that. So that's happening. Tyndall might be a different issue that it's probably a discussion over a beer. One of the things that we need to do is, we the Navy need to explain what happens at China Lake. Yeah, why would you rebuild it in China Lake? It sounds like a bad investment. Well, no, it's actually the only place you can do this, and you need a place where nobody else wants to live, so you can blow up really big things. And that's what happens out there. You do not have an appreciation until you fly over those ranges and see what missiles have been developed there, and some of the facilities that they have out there. Those just aren't duplicable. Can't make them anywhere else. The other aspect of it is, most of the time you have insurance for these sorts of things. We just come back to Congress from it. So having Rep. McCarthy as representing that district will probably be helpful in this discussion as well. So, you know, whether it'll be the 1.7, whether it'll be 1 this year and 7 next year, that I have no idea. A couple over here, sir.
Do you have an estimate of how much the project is
Let's talk about that with the panel, and would like your input on it. I would say, when you remember my opening, we're moving really fast. So, a couple different ways. It'll be part of the scope of work, right? Everything we know about it. We have collected 1,381. Yeah, 81 buildings. We have a giant spreadsheet because the Navy does nothing except on Excel and Outlook that categorizes it. We've got a couple A&E firms that are helping us with it. I've had DATS, damage assessment teams up there reporting it. We're using the FEMA standard form, the ATC 20 to keep track of things, decide if they're safe to enter or not enter. So we've got reasonably good records at this point.
Will you be bringing a design team in or somebody to help with the RFP development? Will that be in-house contractor support? And then the second question is, are you looking at setting up some type of OICC or dedicated command to marshal all this stuff through with all the challenges you're going to have?
We have 2 principal A&Es that have already been contracted to do the master planning and 1391 development. We flooded China Lake yesterday with A&E work. The sessions with the end users start today. They're already scheduled, and that's one nice thing. I'm getting great help from NAWFAC. Somebody, I guess, at the kickoff yesterday said, "This is at least a story, and I'm going to keep using it." Said, "Oh, it'd be better for me if I do next Wednesday instead of Tuesday." And their NAWFAC leadership just shut them down. They're scheduled Wednesday, 10 to 1500, and you better have your requirements done then because these people are leaving and 1391 is going to be written. So they're under contract now, essentially repair projects and replacement projects, getting the scope of work and developing them. So we're moving fast. I got to beat Rich Hayes, if nothing else. I go a little bit faster, get him back up. One of the things that I've got to decide over the next several weeks is how do I manage the construction? My thinking right now is to keep my public works officer there in charge. I don't like splitting a chain of command. I only want one person responsible for work on base, but giving him a special construction office, fully staffed to handle just earthquake work, so that the type of design we're doing, the standards, the speeds, the partnership, formal and otherwise, that we develop can be concentrated in an area, but it still doesn't conflict with the rebuilding Decatur going on, the box contractor that's out there, and everything else that poor Commander Benson has to do. So, refining it. Right here.
Any insight as to how functional the town is?
Yeah. You mean before or after the reasonably well. Eventually, their planning commission, their public works got around and using the ATC 20, red tagged the theater and one of the gyms in town, a fair number of other buildings, but the damage estimates I've seen are pretty small for Ridgecrest. So I went up there the week afterwards, and everything was opening and functioning. You see the one picture of the Albertsons with everything spilled on the floor, but I think there's a reason they kept reusing that one picture, otherwise it's pretty functional. There's one more over here, please.
How much are you currently leaning toward going to existing MAC or IDIQ contracts over other options contracts?
I would say heavily to our existing contractual arrangements, using the various MAC tools we have. Fortunately, we're Southwest, our command is a big command, we do $2.4 billion plus a year, so we've got some contractual tools to use. Again, how can I do it fast? How do I get the United States Navy back up and running? That's my main reason. If you benefit in the meantime, if you can help me, glad to, but it's combat power that I'm worried about. Sir?
You indicated you had 2 AE firms already on board. What's your scope?
Yeah, we'll get into a little more detail on that. Thank you, though. We do need to tell you about it. More over here, sir.
You have a management team already set up in the Navy out there at China Lake. Are you looking for a management team of civilians to help build up the process to get everything built?
So we have something out there, it's called Public Works Department, works for me out there. We've got about 300 folks. We've got both blue collar out there and the normal construction management. I think they do about $100 million a year on a normal year. And it's already hard to hire in China Lake. Environmental, high voltage electricians, construction managers, contract specialists. So one of the things that I will be citing or working through, I think it's next week, is what do we want that office to look like, what we just described, and then what combination of military officers, reserve officers, CBs, government service employees, part-time or temporary government employees, and contractor augment would we need to fill out that that office. So that was one of the, hey, who do you want to deal with? What would be the model that you would recommend to me to be successful? But we'll be making that decision over the next couple of weeks because I got to start staffing up to keep up with you. All right, anything else from me, or we'll roll into the panel. I'll be able to stick around for another 15 mics or so. Thanks for showing up. One more, all right.
Down at Kendall, they've taken an approach of breaking the base up into zones. They have 12 different zones set up. And they're looking at contracting out to a prime contractor each of those 12 zones. Is that something under consideration?
Definitely, and it's one of the things that I'd like to hear from you today. Again, is it like type of buildings? Is it like areas? Hey, if we're going out in the CLIP, the China Lake Propulsion Lab, bundle a whole bunch of projects out there because it's fundamentally different than somewhere else. There are a lot of projects, but there's probably only so many ways we can break it up. There's definitely some geography. We've got the CLIP, main mags, yeah, I call it main side, where the support facilities are, and then the airfield. And those are, and then there's utilities, and then there's roads. I don't know if there's any other big chunk, but you know, that would be an obvious way to do it. You know, obviously, there's also types of construction. You know, I probably won't bundle the chapel with range control. You know, maybe I will. So there may be some functional ways. It may also be as we work with our A&Es. Hey, there's structural steel buildings, there are cast in place buildings, and then there's tilt-up construction. Okay, that may be the smart way. So you get the right subs out there to do that sort of thing. So, if Tyndall's doing it by geography, that would be helpful. But I'd be interested, again, most of our MAC folks are here. Hey, I would like to concentrate on a structural type of construction because that's what really matters. Or maybe it doesn't. You tell me, because we can do it. But if you don't tell me, I don't know to do it the way you ask. All right. Over to the smart people now. Thanks all again for coming. Thanks for your input. Hope to see you at the pre-bid conferences, all right?
So good morning. My name is John Kuhn. I'm the Chief Engineer for NAVFAC Southwest, serve at the pleasure of CAPT Mark Edelson. 4 weeks ago today was the 6.5 earthquake. Or go to the next slide. As he mentioned, on the 4th of July, which is exactly 4 weeks ago today, we had this event. On the 5th of July, we had a 7.1, a separate fault. It was not on the same fault. It was a distinct. I've heard USGS say that this was a pre-fault to the 7.1. Since then, and the takeaway for this quad right here is this is an active, there's an actively earthquakes happening on a daily basis. Yesterday we had 5 over a magnitude 2.5. And to think about that in terms of your builder's risk, your builder's risk insurance, you're going to have, these are going to go on for years. 6.5 right here on the 4th. This was the 7.1 right here. I was up there on the 11th and 12th, so exactly 1 week after the initial event, And I woke up on the 12th to a 4.7, and you definitely could feel it. We were in the hotel right outside the gate right here, and we definitely feel the 4.7. We went out to, myself and my staff went out to this epicenter. As an engineer, it's just fascinating to see the damage this did. The water main that we had out there, with like an 8-inch water main, it was snapped. It wasn't just moved over, it was snapped and moved 10 feet displaced. The pavement, which there was heave-o 10 feet upwards on the, you could actually physically see this fall. So just as an engineer, it's fascinating to see this. Unfortunately, the damage was unfortunate. And Captain Edelson said nobody was injured or killed in here. That's by pure luck and by the grace of God, because we saw racks of heavy equipment laying on the side, and people would have been crushed and hurt or killed had we been on site that day working. It's only because it's 4th of July at 8:15 on a Friday night that nobody was hurt. Next slide. Captain Edelson did talk about the closest metropolitan. He also had Victorville down here. That is the closest. You have Riverside down here, but we wanted to give you just a little bit of area demographics. Is you have 18 hotels, and it's hard to get a room there. You got 60 hotels down here, but that's quite a trek to go back and forth every day. So one of the things we want to hear from you as contractors, if you get involved in this reconstruction, is how would you get the labor into the job sites on a daily basis? We've talked a little bit about construction camps, or I've heard the term man camps, so we label that people or person camps. But that is probably a part of the discussion we need to have. Next slide. So here's how we did our estimating. Captain Edelson threw out I didn't know if I could say 1.7 billion, but since he already said it, I will use that figure. I was going to say $1 billion plus, somewhere close to $1 billion to $2 billion, closer to $2 billion is what I would say. We use the Applied Technology Council ATC 20 form, which is used by FEMA. We had AEs on board helping us with more detailed evaluations and estimates. I talked about our Engineering and Expeditionary Warfare Center evaluating the magazines. We had a Crane Center and Naval Sea Systems Command checking cranes, and we had a lot of crane damage. And then we had an interesting opportunity to have the Army Corps out there with some unique equipment they have to do damage assessment on the roads. We've identified temporary facility requirements, and we've been very tight and closely with Naval Air Systems Command and WD, and they're actually here in the room with us today. We use plant replacement value as the basis of our estimating, the actual cost of similar projects, local or otherwise, relevant costs from our current projects and plan, and then we used RSMEs as well. Next slide. Here's our ROMs, and we're going to make these slides available to you, okay? So if you can take the photos if you want for real time, but we will make these available. We had 69 buildings with a PRB over $5 million, and we did detailed estimates on those. We used parametrics on the less than 5 millions. We had 533 buildings. Out of the, if it was tagged as green, that meant that it needed to be cleaned up, but otherwise it didn't need any kind of facility repairs. Those were not estimated at very, very little. Most of these 533, or most of these are the repair, upgrade, or reconstruct facilities. And you can see the numbers here and what fits into these various categories. And get into the total, and here's the owners of these buildings right here. Next slide. So here's the process we went through. Was we went and tagged the buildings. We used field team rough order magnitude, and we had our AE on site helping us get some more detailed. We pushed that into a performance team that looked at estimates, and we're going to show you some of the contingencies and cost markers that we put on there. We looked at building age, and if it was greater than 50 years, we looked at replacement solution. If it's between 30 and 50, it falls into that bring up to current code. If it's less than 30 years, a lot of that is in good shape in terms of cost, and so our code. So we look at repair solution. And then we also looked at the thresholds. If we exceeded 30% PRV, we need to do seismic upgrades. At exceeding 50%, it triggers the ATFP. And then we get above 75%, we're looking at a pure replacement cost. So those are kind of, graphically, that's the steps we went through to take these 1,300 plus buildings and figure out rough order magnitude to build from the building level up to $1.7 billion. Next slide. We did use analysis from the East Coast on what they went through with Hurricane Florence in particular. And this is factors that they used to Congress, and Congress accepted it. They built to a 45% markup. Came up with that design build versus design bid build. We are going to continue to have dialogue with the industry. I think we're looking at, especially in the replacement, we're looking heavily at a design build solution. We are going to be under extreme pressure. If we get money from Congress, and I don't know if we will, but if we get money, there's going to be a spend plan and a desire that we're obligating very quickly. So we're not going to have time to do a lot of full designs. We're going to be looking at design build solutions. Next slide. So this is a little bit more detail of what I already talked about. Is here's the upgrade and repair considerations. The things that were less than 30 years, which is repair back to 3 July condition. Anything between 30 and 50 are going to trigger code upgrades, and then we have these additional markups. These are our best estimate at this point for $40 a square foot for seismic for one mission, and $60 for mission, and then $30 a square foot for ATFP. Don't know that this will be spot on, but I get some really smart cost engineers, and that's what we came up with at this point. The next slide. Replacement, things that are over 50 years old. Basically the same cost markers right here. Demolishing the current facilities. So Captain Nelson talked about trying to do some demo this year. The demo we're doing this year is the structures that already need to be knocked down. Hangar 2, Hangar 3 will need to be demolished, but we're not going to demolish them until we actually get the project that rebuilds them as well. So the demolition of the replacement projects will be with the replacement project. Next slide. So here comes the money slides that y'all want to see. These are facility and requirements. These are not project numbers. We may end up packaging some of these in individual projects. We had costs for every one of these that ultimately built up to around $1.7 billion. I'll tell you, we turned in last Tuesday the ROM, the first time it was released outside our command, to CNIC, NAVAIR, and our headquarters. And then on Thursday we had a phone call with Admiral Korka, and we went through them, and the concern is that on Hurricane Florence, they put in a 45% contingency, and they're busting bids right now by about 10%, so that contingency wasn't enough. And that's why Admiral Korka said, you don't know what you don't know. He said, you need to go talk to industry. This was last Thursday's phone call. He said, find out what these other factors are that contractors have to price in, because we don't have a lot of confidence in our ROM at this point. So that's why we're here today. We pulled this together within 1 week of that phone call, and that's why it's kind of rushed. Was we've got to turn in something to Congress on the 19th of August. I've got a number out there that I don't know if it's any good or not. We need your intelligence and your experience to tell us what we're not seeing in our stuff. So we took the cost off of here, but we did get you an idea of square footage. The big ones are Hangar 1, Hangar 3, Hangar 2, Michelson Lab. Kind of you see these top ones right here are, and the 22 magazines is now. More than that. Like I said, we lost 2 more in the last few days. 1 5 on top of that. So that was a planning number we showed the chief, but that number's gone north of 22 at this point. Next slide. So in total, we have 749,000 square foot plus of replacement. We've captured on here everything that's over $2 million for replacement, and we have this last one here that's another $2 million stuff. Next slide. Our upgrades. 4 main facilities, another lab there, our fitness center, exchange and fitness annex, the detonation science office, and the commissary all needs some upgrades, total of about close to 77,000 square feet. Next slide. And then our repairs, about close to almost 800,000 square feet of facility repairs we're going to need to do. You see the big projects on there. Hangar 1, it says less ATC. And Michelson Lab are 2 unique situations. That Mike Lab is 500,000 square feet. You see 366 here. If you go back to the construction ones, or go back to the construction ones, you're going to see Wing 8. So Wing 8 alone, 205,000 square feet, is going to need replacement. They sustained heavy damage, and so that'll be a knockdown and replace. The other 7 wings, we're going to get to the other 7 wings constitute another 366,000 square feet of repair. And then Hangar 1, this is just the hangar space. The air traffic control tower was attached to Hangar 1. And the air traffic control tower is slated for complete replacement. It's 5,000 or so square feet. And then this is the hangar space for repairs. Next slide. So here's what we're thinking acquisition-wise. We need to we're using shop forces quite a bit. We had at peak 100 plus NAVFAC Southwest employees up there, pipe fitters, electricians. We're trying to get services back to the base. And we're going to do a lot of repairs in-house or through the job contracts that the PWD already has up there. You see that right here. And the focus is on the repairs they can make under 50K, demolition, and roads. We here in San Diego will probably be doing the larger stuff, and all the replacement upgrade work will be engineered, RFP developed down here or ordered out of our office. And the tools, you don't see any list of tools on here because we're not tied to this point to any tools. Captain Edelson did say we'll be heavily leaning on the existing suite of tools that we have. That's our suite of tools within NAVFAC, not necessarily NAVFAC Southwest. And that's because we can package some of this stuff into sizes that may be like standalone, but we're not going to have the time to get to an FY20 award with a lot of standalone contracts. So we haven't ruled out any kind of a standalone solution on here, but we also recognize that the procurement timeframes to get FY20 execution is going to lead us to existing tools across, maybe possibly even DOD if there's a tool out there that Army Corps had. I don't think we've ruled out anything at this point. You see all the upgrades and repairs are slated for FY20. Subject all to appropriation. See if we can somebody put us on hold here. Yes, sir.
To what extent is there any environmental issues or the kind of industrial processes that will take out damage? So is there any environmental assessment related to that?
We are looking at what both environmental kind of cleanup kind of stuff and or NEPA we have to do. That's being looked at right now in terms of how to go do that. Okay, next slide. I think this is the last slide we're going to park on right here. This is why we're here today. We need, these were in the solicitation for this form today. These questions were in there. Really comes down to a couple of things is what are the cost factors that we're not, you saw a couple of them up there that we thought of, but what are the cost factors that we're not going to be able to walk into Congress with a 50% contingency. As we start bringing our costs down, what do we need to include in there for the unknowns? And then secondly, what rules, that's this last one here, what barriers to bidding and execution might we want to go after? And one that we've talked about is like Buy American Act. Okay, Buy American Act, we probably can't get waived, but if you have specific commodity like steel, electrical wiring, piping, some of those things that might be valuable for us to go after. And there's some other rules and regulations, FAR clauses. If there are things that you see as barriers to us to rapidly get this installation, it's not about upgrading the dollars, it's about completing on the back end and turning our facilities back to NAWS and the air station so that they can be returned to fully mission capable. So that is the purpose we're here. At that point, I think we'll transition into the forum and take questions.
Thank you very much. In terms of supply and demand for labor, have you considered some of the regional challenges throughout California, not just immediate to Palmdale, Lancaster?
Let's start with this. Why don't we, as individual panel, introduce ourselves, who we are, and then
Hi, I'm Auburn Green. I'm the Capital Improvements Acquisition Director for A&E Construction Contracts for all the Max Visual Contracts for all.
Hi, I'm Renee Cavendra. I'm the Chief of Contracts for NAVFAC Southwest. A lot of you might remember me as Renee Jones 20 years ago at CAPT Edelson, so same person. Jennifer Lamas, I'm the Engineering Design Director at NAVFAC Southwest.
I'm Louis Stan at the Ops Office of NAVFAC Southwest.
Yeah, I was wondering if you field questions here in the audience.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Good.
Yeah,
So, one of the big regional challenges that I'm seeing is a lot of labor, trucking that's devoted to fire cleanup throughout California. Already, prior to the earthquake, people trucking in equipment from out of state, there's already a pretty good shortage. Have markups to account for that been taken
So our question for you is, what would you recommend as a reasonable markup for not only equipment and such, but also having to bring in labor from outside local areas? And we recognize that you've got East Coast and Southeast hurricane recovery, you got a stadium being built in Los Angeles, you got fire damage recovery, which is still going on in the state, and then our stuff's coming on. So we recognize that there's going to be labor, equipment, material challenges. What we're asking you is, what's a reasonable market for that, and how do we defend that with Congress?
My question was, are you considering a China Lake specific IDIQ for construction? Second, while you have capacity in existing contracts, are you considering a separate one to offset whatever you might need?
We're really not, there's just not time to put that in place and then award the projects. It would take us, anywhere from 16 to 18 months to put that in place, in best case 12. So no, that's not an option. Going back to your question though about labor, we really want to focus on that for a minute if we can and get some input from the people out here. So obviously for labor, you're going to start with Davis-Bacon. You're going to have to pay people more than Davis-Bacon just to get them to go to China Lake. What is that figure? Is it 10%? Is it 15%? Is it 20%?
30.
25, 30? Is that a consensus? What do y'all think?
All day long.
Plus per diem.
Yeah, travel.
Yes, and then let's talk per diem. Okay, so marking it up 20 to 30% over Davis-Bacon. Now on per diem, for the government, the per diem rate at China Lake is about $118 for a hotel and another $50, $60 for meals. We assume you are going to have to pay some sort of per diem. Are you looking at $170 per person per day? Do you think it'll be smaller? Let's talk about that.
It'll be that per diem.
Once the hotel, in our experience, once the hotels fill up, which they will, and even the campgrounds will be full, it's going to be double that, and it's going to be name your price because hotels are short supply, very short supply.
So you said it'll be double that. What figure would you use if you're putting together a proposal to bid on our project? We're trying to get down to those numbers because John needs them to submit to Congress, and he needs to defend them.
I'm involved in a project going by Convey, and I think you really need to look at person camps. I mean, there's suppliers that can design and install, and I would put that on maybe a fast track route to get that, because you are going to have a hotel issue, and they're probably going to jack the rates up too.
So that's a great point. So from a defense perspective, what is the delta between setting up a person camp vice if we were to try to go out and secure hotels? That's what we really want to know. We could potentially save X amount. If you look at the chart that John showed with the markups, the national labor, the national labor premium. Our basic assumption was 0%, so that's what we can inform how we're going to approach that particular aspect that's going to be important.
So I'm going to A&E. I would do both things at once. I would, if you can, put out a solicitation to private hoteliers and tell them there's this huge demand coming down the stream, and they may opt in to go ahead and slap up a couple more buildings on their own because they're going to have a 2 or 3 year payout. But I still would do the person camp. I mean, you could run those things in parallel, and then you're getting ahead of the snake swallowing the beast with this huge demand coming through it.
And Charlie has a lot of land, right? So there's an opportunity for a person camp. I guess the delta is like what we could look at as far as it makes sense to do a person camp because you can potentially see a X percentage savings from a building perspective. This is good.
Mr. Bennett.
You please.
They're on hold. They're on hold. They can hear you.
Yeah, they're on hold.
You have a really big task in your hands. You have an hour left of this program, so you can ask some questions and get some general ideas, because
a lot of thought that'll have to go into these man camps, travelers, costs. Your hotels isn't going to be able to handle it, because you're going to have situations set up. You provide meals and bring down costs. You got a whole bunch of things to consider. But you, like other government agencies, said they're really looking for the industry to give them feedback. The challenge has been in those forums to get you that feedback. How do you see us communicating with you? I represent a very large firm, there's a couple others here. How can we communicate with you to help you, give you information? Because you only got an hour here, I don't think I can get it all.
So obviously, as much specificity as possible today. We also will entertain, I believe, if we want to set up some calls individually, we can do that as well. I don't think we can talk to 100 contractors at our age, because we'll wait up till like 19 August. But definitely, if you have some thoughts and ideas, approach Renee and I will figure out how to have a separate dialogue with you.
Without having a chance to really look at numbers and everything, it's hard to say, but I would tell you that camps are cheaper than putting people in hotels and restaurants significantly. The delta, it'd be hard to say if it's 50% or 30 or what it is.
No, but that's what we need to know. It is something that we talked about. Like I said, China Lake presents an opportunity for such a setup because of the remote. In fact, they do have a lot.
And it may be true, but out there, because of just your utilities that you're going to need to bring in to do that, I'm not sure that would be the savings at this time. Just because of the utilities you're going to have to bring in, how far you're going to have to bring it, and also the temporary facilities that you're talking about. There's already a shortage on those happening right now as well, so if you are going to bring in those, you may want to talk to the manufacturers right now and see where they're standing on that, because they're already in demand.
You know, you already have a model that you did at Pendleton with the temporary facilities. You have some costs associated with setting up those temp facilities. You did it with Grow the Force and some of that. So you have a little bit of data that you can work from.
I think the general consensus is something we need to look at, and location. This is away from utilities as a factor.
So Lori, I wonder if, again, trying to think out of the box a little bit, somehow if you could utilize some construction forces inside the defense and set up that camp and take that factor off the table from every individual contractor. And the gentleman made the point about setting your own price. At some point, the market's just going to overtake your affordability. So if you could kind of put 1,000-person camp out there, just talking off the top of my head, use some CVs or some others, and do that, and now you can take that cost out of the process because the government's providing that. And I think you take the responsibility if you could do something.
And if you think out of the box, you want a return on investment. And with that being said, I put up a large solar system, and that way when it's completed, your camp, you got the solar system set up. So return on investment is down the road. Now the second thing is these blue collar workers. If you get a prime blue collar workers, we got to pay over premium to bring them in. Most of them are traveling, so that camp is a big thing. And I've got my past experience from a lot of environmental cleanups. So just passing the food for thought.
One of the things I think you'll need to consider is lessening the requirements for like the quality control managers. We're not gonna, it's hard to find anybody right now that meets like the years of experience and the required degrees. And also I think you're going to probably need to possibly lessen the small business requirements, because we're going to have to get bigger contractors with subcontractors with better resources.
I'd probably echo the same comment regarding qualifications, and that's a really big issue on a lot of contracts that we're working on. the qualifications of QCMs, of safety, and you name it, is a huge issue. They're not out there, and if they are, they do have qualifications, additional qualifications that gets added on. They're gainfully employed, so when they're currently working on, so echo that point. That's a significant challenge. Another issue I'd bring up too is that maybe asking you guys if you have a boss contractor that could be part of the development of the man camp, just throwing that out there. They're probably the most qualified and best capable of setting something like that up to run it and to manage it.
Let me just follow up on the question regarding qualification, lesson of qualifications for the QC and safety. What do reduced qualifications look like, right? So you can say lesson, but specifically, what's the minimum qualifications?
The 4-year degree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Primary
That's
issue
it.
is a 4-year degree.
You demand a 4-year degree in those 3 disciplines, and you can get great people with 10 years experience.
And drop the CHST requirement.
The what?
CHST on the safety?
What about the years of experience?
The experience is probably fine. The issue is, like you're saying, is the degree issue. If you're bringing the guys up to the field, they're not necessarily have gone to the school to get the degree, the piece of paper. You got great guys that, or women that can do the job. They're held back because they don't have the piece of paper.
There are some great people that have come up through the craft that have the years of experience easily, but don't have the 4-year degree. And they're just as equally qualified to be a QCM as somebody that has a 4-year degree.
And the Army Corps has done that on 3 projects we're on right now. Drop that requirement and require 10 years experience. And it's working.
That's awesome feedback, thanks.
You may also want to think about structuring for a simpler job, 5 years experience instead of 10. I mean, 10 years experience for a QC, okay, if the job's technically difficult, larger than 10 million, I mean, if you got a small job that is, doesn't require 10 years of QC experience, you may want to drop those to 5.
And on those smaller jobs, have the dual hat for the super SSHO.
Well, yeah, if they're under, what is it, 3 million or something, you know, so to me, a small job isn't. Yeah, I'm saying if it's, you know, just a renovation, you're not doing a lot of structural steel and everything, but it's a $7 million job. You need a QC with $10 million or 10 years of experience.
You could also look at close proximity of projects. If you have 2 buildings going up side by side and you require 2 different safety officers when one can do that job, that's something that should be considered, you know, because your safety officer is not going to be busy all day. You can easily cover the ground on 2 different projects if they're close proximity, as well as CQC.
Back to the camps real quick. One thing that is often overlooked, that is a big impact, is that if you have to bring in, let's say, at peak capacity, what do you have here working? Let's say you've got 1,000 workers. If they have to come in and get through the gate every morning, cost goes up through the roof because you're sitting there in a pile of people just coming in. We've had that happen in places where it's just extremely difficult, but another location where we had 1,200 people man camp, and we had a fence around it, and they had escort buses. They had to travel with buses to get to the place, and that took care of a lot of the problems. Just having that camp on site and not access, have to get through access.
Nathan O'Rourke. I'm from WD NAVFAC. I'm sorry, you can't hear me, so I'm not used to microphones. But anyways, so 10 years I've been doing, I've probably worked with a lot of these contracts before on other projects. Something to think about for cost factors. Cliff, you're going to need escorts out to that area. There's no cell phones out there. A lot of contractors struggle with the 3-hat rule, right? You have to You gotta go pick people up at the front gate, you gotta leave the job without supervision to go pick them up. A lot of those factors with those remote areas is something to think about, and I think is kind of value added for the different areas, the different cost factors that you guys could add for these guys here. So, anyway, it's something to think about.
And Nathan, just to be clear, CLIP is China Lake Propulsion.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure everyone.
China Lake Propulsion Lab.
Okay.
What that stands for.
China Lake Propulsion Lab.
I would ask that there be some type of orientation done with the PASID office where they are crystal clear and keep extremely consistent rules from contractor to contractor.
It's like a little PTSD from PASID.
And maybe having multiple gates open. To your point, Christmas Canyon Gate, South Range Gate, etc.
So I just moved the replacement slide back up here. You'll see when you get these slides, you see COPL, that's the proposal, those are the CLIP projects we're talking about right there.
Man cams are good, but you've also got to remember the logistics to even operate one of those things is going to be, if you say 1,000 men, Ridgecrest is going to have a real time trying to even feed these people in the stores. I mean, getting out to get gas, getting to buy food. I mean, are you going to put a cafeteria at the man camp that people can eat at or not, or they go outside and eat? There's a lot of stuff that goes with this.
Hi, I'm Zach with the NAVFAC Small Business Office, and we mentioned small businesses. I'd like you to keep in mind that Rule 2 will still apply for this, and the Small Business Administration is not going to pass this up. So if there are 2 or more small businesses that are capable of performing the work, it's going to have to be set aside for small business. Also bear in mind that like entities, if you're a woman-owned small business or a veteran small business, you can partner with other small businesses of your same entity and take care of, you would still be considered one entity. So keep that in mind when you're looking at these projects, to look at your competition, partner up with your competition to be able to do this, because when it goes up to the SBA, they see 2 or more, it's going to be set aside.
One of the questions we have is how many, what's the dollar threshold, the minimum that makes these jobs attractive? Is it $5 million contract, 10 million, 50 million? What's the lowest threshold that makes these jobs, contracts attractive to bid on and go work in China Lake?
30.
10.
Going for 5. Going once.
For us small contractors, 10.
10 million.
10.
He asked.
He asked, I'll say so.
Hey, I got a question really fast. He mentioned the commander mentioned that you guys weren't going to do the demo on any of the buildings until the replacement building was bid out. That was going to be part of the, I mean, if we're talking about manpower issues and talking about, oh, it's going to be hard to get everybody situated in hotels. I don't understand why you guys aren't direct awarding stuff or putting stuff out in this existing max right now to get, you know what's damaged, you know what's red tape, to get it out and out of the way, because that's also when you find all the problems too. You don't, these buildings are 50 years old, there's going to be, God knows what kind of hazardous materials. Why wouldn't you guys be getting that out right now, and site utilities too, getting site utilities packages out right now too, so that we don't have to deal with that, because digging in the ground out there is a nightmare. I mean, you guys should really think about maybe getting going on that right now, and then using the money you get from Congress later to actually just do buildings 5 feet outside of structure, and do everything else. Get it going right now. That would help.
I had one quick comment, and I don't know anybody. Have you considered getting a contractor committee put together to work with you guys? Because obviously this forum is going to be very, very limited, but there's a lot of great resources in this room and outside of this room to where you could create a contractor committee that would work with you guys to help get through some of this, the logistical problems that you're talking about.
Question on that. Would I be selecting the contractors, or would my ATC?
I believe there's plenty of contractors who would probably volunteer that would help walk through this on a limited basis as far as meetings and things. You could probably put it out and get several people who would say, yeah, we would like to participate.
Conclusion from conflict. But could I ask you just one quick question, and that is,